Good morning and welcome to the center. Good morning and welcome to the center. This morning, as well as our program, is a meditation first, short period of meditation. Then after that, the Dhamma talk. So our speaker is here. We are happy to see you, Mr. Sai. Right now he's here. But I told to the Subodha to lead the meditation today. So Subodha, you can lead the meditation. So after that, Sai will start his Dhamma talk.
Let's get into a comfortable position, close our eyes, and begin with 3 deep breaths. And now let us develop thoughts of metta, goodwill, loving kindness, beginning with ourselves. We might think to ourselves, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May I live with a heart and mind unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May I look after myself with ease. And then extend your metta to your loved ones, your family, your friends, your mentors, your guides, all those near and dear to your heart, all those that you respect and admire. May they be happy, peaceful, free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May they live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May they look after themselves with ease. And then extend your goodwill, your loving kindness to your acquaintances, those that you don't know so well. May they also be happy, peaceful, free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May they also live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May they look after themselves with ease. And then we extend our goodwill, our loving kindness, even to those that we don't get along with so well, those that we have difficulty respecting or admiring, even those that may call us enemy. May they also be happy, peaceful, free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May they also live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May they look after themselves with ease. And so it is in this spirit of admirable friendship that we extend our metta, our goodwill, our loving kindness in all directions, to the north, to the east, to the south, to the west, above and below, outward into infinity, to all sentient beings everywhere. May we all be happy. May we all be peaceful. May we all be free from stress and pain. May we all be free from suffering. May we all live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May we all look after ourselves with ease. And now, with our hearts and minds uplifted with the metta that we've cultivated, let us now turn our attention to the breath. Developing ardency, alertness, and mindfulness, setting aside greed and distress with reference to the world, we bring our attention to the breath as it comes in, the breath as it goes out, Become aware of the kind of breathing going on in the body right now. Is the breath long? Is it short? Is it deep? Is it shallow? Settle into the awareness of the breathing happening right now. And allow your body to breathe as it needs to. It can be helpful to ask yourself what kind of breathing is the most easeful right now, the most gratifying, and see how the body responds. You need not exert any great effort. It's simply enough to ask the question and then allow the body to respond accordingly. Wherever it is you feel the breath most easily in the body, settle your awareness there. Whatever thoughts of the past, whatever thoughts of the future, whatever thoughts that are outside the meditation, set them all aside for now. Let this mindfulness of breathing be your sole occupation for this session. Anytime the mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. Bring it back to the awareness of the body breathing. Allow yourself to be spacious and open. Allow the breath to move through you. See if you can, as we meditate together, develop a centered yet broad awareness. Continue to meditate in this way until you hear the bell.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Subodha, leading the Metta meditation. Now, Sai, you can start your Dhamma talk.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Navanna rupena naro sujano na vissase ittara dasanena. Susanyatanang hiviyanjanena asanyata lokamiman charanti. Good morning, Venerable Sirs and dear friends in Dhamma. It's always a blessing to be among our Venerable Bhantes and monks, and also Dhamma friends who are interested in learning Buddhism, practicing Buddhism, and like Subodha, guided in the pursuit of happiness. And Buddhism provides a lot of meaningful directions to achieve those goals. Unfortunately, it doesn't guarantee unless you put those teachings into practice. As a well-known saying, Tumhi kichang atapang akataro tathagata. That's a Buddha saying that tells like, you have to do the work, I will just give you the direction. So the Buddha's teaching is not so much based on faith or your trust in the Buddha, but also more on how much you would practice, right? Just like you go to the doctor asking some advice for weight loss or better heart health, and doctor can provide you all kind of tips. It's up to you whether you achieve them or not, and how much you apply those directions into your life. So that makes it not very appealing to many people. And Buddhism is not very appealing because like, I don't want to do the work. I just want to participate. I should be guaranteed certain happiness, certain destination. We wish that is possible, but it's not. We have to put that effort. And that's what you see from all the monks, all the Venerable Sirs. Those who have learned these teachings, they try to invite people and continue to hold these sessions. And this is my 12th year coming to this temple. And even before I started coming to this temple, and Bhante Santi and before Bhante, they all continue to have that same intention, right? Giving this space and opportunity to come and learn and invite you to practice. So I hope you will take something in every meeting, learn something about Buddhism and about yourself, and try to incorporate that in your life so you can find the aspired goal in your life, whether it is enlightenment, whether it is peaceful family life, peaceful relationship with other members, because it's up to us whether we achieve them or not. So going back to last month, I shared some ideas about good friends and friends in disguise. There are people, those who pretend to be friends. And it's a very important topic in Buddhism. And there's a Pali chanting we do, Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo. My favorite chanting. It's a very brief, it's almost like a determination. It says, with the merit, with the good deed I have engaged in, may I never have mame bala samagamo. May I never associate with, bala is like stupid or unwise people. And may I never have to associate unwise people. Satang samagamo hotu. May I always be in contact with wise and intellectual people. Because association is a huge part, and I shared this in last meeting. Venerable Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, he thought that good friendship is extremely important. He said 50% of the Buddha's teaching is dependent upon good friendship. And Buddha corrected him. It's not 50, it's 100%. 100% of Buddhism or practice of Buddhism is dependent upon good friendship. So friendship is extremely important part. But how do you find good friends? And I shared some teaching from the Buddha. How do you know if you are in contact with actual, real friend or friend in disguise, right, who pretend to be friends? And today I want to share a little bit more. When we try to pursue that journey, it's not easy. There are people with wrong intention, we tend to judge people based on face value. So how do we avoid that? The Buddha has a really nice teaching on that part. The Gatha I mentioned is from Sattajatila Sutta. It's a discourse in Sangyutta Nikaya, the third the collection of miscellaneous teaching, which talks about how do you know whether you're in a good contact, good association or not. So it's about a story. King Kosala, he visited the Buddha. He was very close friend to the Buddha. And one day when he was having conversation with the Buddha, just like here, imagine we're having a little dialogue and there's some other religious individual passed by while he was talking to the Buddha. The king stood up and went out to show respect to these other religious individuals. And he came back to the Buddha and he told the Buddha, those are some ascetics who are similar to you, who is in pursuit of enlightenment. And Buddha knew that was not the case. So Buddha gave a really meaningful advice to King Kosala. There are 4 ways that you can know whether somebody is actual individuals that you think or someone in disguise. The Gatha I mentioned says, Navanna rupena naro suzano. You cannot judge individual by their skin color, their appearance. Just like you cannot judge somebody by their face value. Susanyatanang hi vyanjanena. Sometimes people are well behaved but ill-intended. So they're not actually who they pretend to be. And Buddha gave, how do you find out whether someone is worthy of association? And the first one Buddha shared is Sangwasena ko Maharaja silang veditabbo. If you really want to know somebody, if you really want to know someone's character, you have to associate them to know their morality. Sangwasa, live together or stick together to know their morality. Whether they have a good practice, whether they have a wrong practice. In Buddhist way, do they harm others? Do they lie? Do they follow certain moral values or not? So you have to associate, you have to live with them to know their moral practice. And that should be done Digenana aduna. That means you have to live with them for a long time. And this advice goes, and the other part is attentively, not inattentively, and wisely, not unwisely. So he gives some detailed advice. So if you want to know someone's moral character, you have to live with them. Now that goes in many ways. If you think of choosing a partner, choosing an employee, choosing a place to work, if you really want to know whether that's a good place who have valuable moral practice, that means you have to live with those individuals for a while. And that's how you know whether they have good practice. The second part, the second advice is Sangwoharena ko Maharaja sochayang veditabang. If you really want to know whether someone is in good conduct, then you have to engage in dialogue. So you have to talk to them. You have to examine whether they have a good thinking, thought process. And same advice, you have to do it for a long time, not just like a one simple interaction. And the third one is Sakachai Apadasuko Maharaja Thamo Veditabbo. If you want to know someone's patience, you have to see them during trouble and for a long time, wisely, attentively. So that's when you know if somebody has a resilience, someone do not panic, know how to take those challenges and resolve those issues. The last one is Sakachai ko Maharaja Panya Viddabbo. If you want to know someone's depth of wisdom, you have to have an argument, you have to have a discussion about topics. And again, attentively, mindfully, and for a long time. So Buddha gave these 4 instructions to find out whether you are in a good contact. And I shared this because when you try to find a person, a friend, or a companion, we tend to look at the very first impression, right? It's very easy to deceive others by first impression and not go any further. And I want to come back to what Subodh mentioned. We're in pursuit of happiness. We want to have that happiness. And a lot of people think happiness is a state or it's something you achieve. You can feel it. In Pali, if you look at from the Buddhist point of view, it's the absence of dukkha. That's where you find sukha. And the word dukkha comes from, it's actually referred to the tightness of a cart wheel. When you have a tightness, it creates so much friction, it burns, right? Every move burns. So that's what dukkha means. And dukkha does not mean just suffering or pain. It means there is like a deep-seated dissatisfaction about your condition. And that can come from many forms. And in Buddhism, there are 12 folds of dukkha. So we'll talk about that some other day. There's so many forms of dukkha. But the biggest part is how we perceive it. How we perceive those conditions makes a huge difference. So if we want to change that, if you want to achieve sukha, that you do need to understand what dukkha is, right? Where do I find dissatisfaction? And it could be depending on the social status. It could be dependent upon your work status or what do you own. So those values can give you happiness and unhappiness. And same thing with the people you associate, right? That can give you happiness and unhappiness. And that's where Buddha's advice comes handy when you choose people, when you choose friends. You try to find these qualities. And one last thing I want to add is, how do we find this happiness? It's our attitude toward our life conditions, right? And Buddha gave really good practical advice. Number 1 is Uttana Sampada. So this is from a different sutta. He advised us as humans, we must put some effort in achieving goals. And it can come in many forms. Uttana is effort. And Buddhist definition of effort comes in 4-fold. That if you put effort on something, it could be an effort to improve yourself, right? What you already know. So that's we call wholesome effort. So if you already are, I can use my example, I'm an instructor, I teach. So if I want to put effort in getting better at my teaching role, now that's considered I'm pursuing happiness because I'm putting effort to better the skill that I already have. Or I put effort in learning new skills that I don't have. Let's say I want to learn music. So I can put effort to learn music, to improve that skill, to earn that skill. And you can also put effort to get rid of some bad habits. If you have some habits that you think is unhealthy, whether it is eating or drinking or not exercising, some of those habits you can put effort to reduce those bad habits. And if you don't have any bad habits, you need effort not to earn one. Right? You continue to have effort not acquire a bad habit. So those 4 areas we call Uttana Sampada. It's a wholesome way to pursue happiness. It doesn't come out of nowhere. That's why I mentioned earlier, in Buddhism, now you learn something. I hope it will stick with you. You learn how to pursue happiness through effort, but knowing this piece of information does not guarantee any level of change in your life. You have to take this out and start applying into your life. So that's the first one, Uttana Sampada. And Arakka Sampada is what you just earned, whether it is a good habit, good skill, or keeping away the bad habits, you have to protect them. So that's the second way to pursue happiness. We call Arakka, protect it. Use your energy to protect what you have earned, what you have created, and in the wholesome way. And the third one, again, it goes back to have some Kalyana Mitta Sampada. That means you need to have good friends. So to protect that habit, whether it is about practicing Buddhism, practicing mindfulness meditation, or practicing precepts, you need to have friends, those who remind you. And I mentioned that in last meeting, you need to surround yourself with friends, those who remind you of your good deeds and also your bad deeds, warn you about those things. And that's came to my mind, there's a really unfortunate statistics in the United States is like 50% of adult men don't have one meaningful friends in the United States. So half of us are lonely people, right, men, because we cannot find these values and we cannot share these values or sustain it. So that's why the friendship is such an important part in Buddhist practice. And the last one is samajivikata. And that's a difficult task, but it leads toward happiness, a balanced life. A balanced life is, you can translate many ways, and that sutta mentioned about you earn something, you have to divide your earning, your income into a certain way that's a balance in your life. You don't put a lot of credit or accrue a lot of debt in compared to what you make. That could lead to not very satisfying life. So those are 4 qualities that lead, 4 values you can think of: Uttana, Arakka, Kalyanamitta, and Samajivikata. Effort, protecting what you have, having good friends, and having a balanced life. Those values will keep us in a journey toward happy life, and everybody wants that. But are we ready to achieve those goals? That's up to us, right? That's where Buddhism is very much somewhat, I think selfish is a wrong term to use, but in Pali we call atmartakami, or in the pursuit of your own well-being. Even the Buddha himself, if you know his story, he was in that journey. He was able to help himself first, right? That's after he achieved that goal, he went to help others. So if you start applying these things into your life, that's a sort of being selfish, but it's okay. I don't know. I don't have a better term. Selfish seems like a translation that's self-centered, seems a little negative, but do things that will benefit you. And if you have that journey and if you apply this into your life, I hope you will find that joy, right? I hope you will find that happiness that comes from Buddha's advice. And contentment, that's the last one I want to add, is the biggest thing that we should think about, because again, another teaching, another Pali saying is santutti paramang dhanam. That's the biggest wealth or biggest gain you can have is that contentment. And it comes from having that balanced life, understanding where your effort is put and who you're surrounded by, how you're protecting, and how you're living a balanced life. So it's the end of the year, so I hope you will apply some of these teachings and continue to inquire more and pursue your journey toward enlightenment. And that is not only for monks. So sometimes people tend to think like, oh, enlightenment is too far. No, this is a step closer toward enlightenment. You're heading toward the right direction. Just be aware of distractions. Just be mindful of bad associates that can take you away from that journey. So I wish you all happy ending of this year, and continue to pursue what you do and continue to improve yourself. Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to chime in because I know you don't mean selfishness, so I wanted to help and see if we can
please
arrive at a better phrase for this. One of the things you were saying about happiness, conversely to like suffering or stress, dukkha, is like the very high standard that the Buddha has for what sukha, what happiness really is. I'm reminded of this one passage in the Dhammapada where the Buddha says that peace is the only happiness, right? And one of the reasons why we focus so much on our own cultivation is because we can't offer to others what we don't have. We can't offer peace that we don't have. So we develop ourselves towards the attainment of that true and lasting happiness, that peace that resides in our hearts. And then that's what we share with others. So it's not necessarily a case of self-interest or selfishness, but the acknowledgement that we need to have something to offer others.
Yes.
Really for their long-term welfare and benefit, and their true happiness. So we develop peace so that we have peace to give others, which is, I think, completely unselfish, but recognizing that we can't pour from an empty cup. Our cup has to be full and overflowing first, overflowing with that peace that the Buddha says is the only happiness. That would be the way I would describe it.
Yeah. Help me find a word for Atmartakami. So the translation is like Atma is yourself, Artakami means somebody who pursue that meaningful for themselves.
Yeah, in pursuit of one's well-being.
Okay, it's not a one word.
It's not one
Yeah,
word.
if I try to go shortcut, that's when I end up saying selfish. Okay. Yes.
What about self-uplifting?
Yeah, that sounds more aligned than that. Yes, Russell.
Yeah, maybe in Chinese they have this word, but translated to be something like self-cultivation.
Self-cultivation. Yeah, that does align. Yes. And I thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you can't give others when you don't have it. And the other, so that I hope it's not misconveyed, because I do think there's a little bit in Buddhist teaching. There is some level of selfishness. Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because if you do practice, let's say you practice meditation, you do offering, you're very generous, you give, whatever you earn, you cannot give that to someone else. Does that make sense? Like you get merit, you have wholesome practice, you're very skilled, you have a lot of good qualities, you cannot give that to someone else. Even the Buddha couldn't do it. Some people ask, you are the Buddha, why don't you enlighten me? And Buddha said, I can't. That's not how it works. That's where it's at. Tumhi kichang atapang. You have to put your own effort to achieve that goal. I can only give you the directions. So in that sense, where I say, it's very for yourself, and it's not a bad way. Selfish has a lot of negative connotation, but it's not a bad thing to engage in that self-cultivation or self-uplifting, because imagine we all become selfish in that sense. This world will be very peaceful, because we all try to do our best to, not just to accrue merit, but also cultivate wholesome practices, right? Practice nonviolence, practice generosity, and in a meaningful way. And we continue to do that. Everybody does that. And there was a message in Nepal. There was a time when people, make a mess everywhere. There's a trash everywhere, and I can't remember. I was very young. The government came with a plan. You don't need to clean the town. You just clean your house. Keep your house clean. That was the only request. And people thought, like, that's doable. If I have to clean the whole town, that's a lot of work. If I have just to clean my house, it's my house. I can do that. So when people did it, it made a huge change. It's a huge shift in how we manage clutter. So in the same way, the Buddha's advice is, and even when we think of loving kindness, it's very self-focused.
It's precisely because you phrased it that way that I think it's less about being self-interested and more about being self-reliant.
Yeah, yes. That's our struggle with English word, and at least my struggle when I try to talk about Buddhism using English.
Even in the metta meditation that I do, notice that at the end I say, may we all look after ourselves with ease. That's me translating sukha, like may they look after themselves happily. Right?
Yes.
There's another way of translating it. But the idea is that we are, in that sense, caring and looking after ourselves. So it's more about self-reliance than self-interest.
Yes.
Because I think we're on shaky ground when we start talking about selfishness.
That's true.
But self-reliance, I think, is maybe better.
Yes. Remind me your name?
The word selfish is just a word, and if we add in perception to it, there's
Yeah.
Then word itself.
Word is word.
neutral.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. What's your name?
Oh, my name's Tiff.
Tiff. Thank you, Tiff. Yes, it's just a word, and as long as the message, the what we're trying to convey is there. And I think from, like, if you look into Pali script for loving kindness, what we say in English is not there. You know, maybe look after each other is not there in Pali. The Pali has just like you. You're the focus. And there's a funny story about one king. He thought his wife Mallika, that's the wife, beautiful wife, he thought his wife loved him the most. And he wanted to test it. So one day he asked, he shouldn't have done that in first place. He wanted to know for sure, and he asked, who do you love the most? And the queen, Mallika, without any hesitation, myself. King was shocked and disheartened, right? He went to the Buddha and I expected a different answer. And why is that? And Buddha gave a little background story. You know, if there is a fire to catch in your house, in your palace, who would you protect first? You wouldn't look for your wife first. You might run out of the house first. Then, oh, my wife is still in there. So we are very much in your focusing on, I need to be safe. And it's biologically programmed that way. You know, we are not programmed to look for everybody and then get out. I mean, we have heard about heroic individuals who, you know, in many settings, but it's not very common. Most of the time we look after ourselves first and then think about others. And Buddha used that, whether it is called selfish or self-centered or self-reliance, Buddha used that as a way to motivate people. And that's where the loving kindness works. You start your loving kindness within yourself. You don't start on your children or your parents. It's always like ahang avero homi. May I be free from hatred. Ahang avyapajo homi. May I be free from ill will. So it's very much from you. And when we practice that loving kindness, you can, it's a consciousness that can have no limit. We call infinite amount of consciousness you can generate with loving kindness. That's where you can spread that beyond yourself, beyond other human beings, animals, and beyond the universe. You can do that, but do not expect just because of your loving kindness, the world will transform. That's a misperception. It just, you can expand that loving kindness so vast, it goes beyond the universe. But does not mean the universe will be peaceful. That's a wrong take on loving kindness. It definitely brings so much benefit to you. It can even enlighten you. So there are monks who have used loving kindness to become enlightened, because that can be the base. So it's like Subodh mentioned, it's a little tricky way to translate, but the big part to think is the change happens within, right? You change yourself, and that change can be very powerful, whether it is either a vicarious change, where other people observe you and learn from you, or you tell. That's what Buddha did. He started within himself. It went to 5 other people, then went to other 50 more, then to 1,000, and it continued to spread beyond that continent. And that can happen within anybody. And that's why I love about Mahayana teaching, you know, we all have little Buddhas in us, right? Not in a size, but the little, that's like we call bodhi chittas, right? The potential for enlightenment. And that's only possible, I can say with very much certainty, in humans. That bodhicitta, or the consciousness for enlightenment is, yeah, there you go, the different terms, right? The womb for enlightenment, that's what Tathagata Garbha means, right? So we all have that, and it's only possible in humans. No other animals, no other living beings, not even gods, not even other, you know, higher living beings can achieve that enlightenment. It has to be a human. It has to be a human being. So we are all with that potential, and it's up to us whether you want to crush it or ignite it more, make it larger, and bring it out. So we can talk more about, what are some paths. There's a 10 perfection that you can start working on one at a time. And it's a journey. And if you think, if you have to, I don't know, that's very unlikely somebody would do. If you want to walk from here to Arizona, you might think it's like, man, that's a long distance to walk. You would never get there if you don't start, right? You got to start with a step, and that's what this enlightenment is. It's there, we know. Most of the time, we don't start because it's too far or it's like too tiring, and we rest too early, and we have a lot of distractions. And Bhantes are, way more blessed. This analogy, we are, if we were to compare the journey to this, our destination with the two birds, like a pigeon, and it's a peacock and a swan. If they were to go on a race, swan will win because the swan has nothing to show. It's plain white, it will keep on its journey. But peacock has a lot of color to show. It will stop at many places when it sees a crowd, spread the feather and do a little dance and continue the journey. So that's us. Peacock are like a lay people, those who are taking many other responsibilities, are exposed to many other distractions. And monks, they're like swan. They don't have much to show. They have bald head, plain robe. They can keep on their journey. But nonetheless, we can reach the destination. So it's possible.
So you've driven through Arcadia a few times. You got to watch out for those peacocks. They're always crossing the street. Those guys.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Can I say
Yes,
one?
Ananda.
There's a word that I feel like is very similar to selfish, and it gets a very bad reputation, desire, because usually they translate Dhamma as desire. So people think that, Buddhists, they're just completely against desire. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that in Buddhism there's good desires to have, right? Like you want to be a better person. You want to be a more loving and more educated person. Like
Yeah.
This is a desire too.
It's the wrong person to ask about English words. I would use the aspiration, right? You aspire to be better. And even now, yes, we call, in Pali, called iccha. Iccha is like a wanting or liking. And it's a required quality for enlightenment. You should have that wanting for enlightenment. Without iccha, you cannot achieve. Desire is like a tanha. Tanha is like the direct translation would be like a heat. So that's what the
sensual desire.
Yes,
Tanha would be
that's like a heat. That's where when you use it loosely, yes, people do use the word desire for, desire to, then it can be misunderstood. But the Pali word tanha is always associated with like a sensual pleasure than wanting something different. Yeah.
gratifying the senses.
Yes. The tanha is always associated with gratification.
Always associated with like physical desire? Or
It could be even mental. It could be in mental impulsion. So that could be like for example, people like without mental aspect, we cannot think of physical desire. Like you want to eat something, it's not for the sake of your tongue. It's the sensation that your mind interprets as yummy or good or flavorful. So it's always there is something to do with how your mind interprets it, right? And the opposite too, the desire to avoid them, right? You don't like certain sensation. It's not because the sensation itself, it's because your mind perceives that as hurtful or painful. So it always has to do with how your mind interprets it. Yeah.
thank you.
I remember there is a term called chanda.
Yes,
The
yes,
initial stage of desire.
yes.
And it's used in both ways, so negative and positive ways. It's kind of interesting. Chanda is used for like to develop, enlightenment. Also, chanda is used as a
Chanda kama, yes, yeah, the
for sense of the
liking, yes. And I have shared this in previous conversation. It starts with very mild version of like a chanda or like the opposite Chanda is like a liking, then it turns into tanha, like that's a desire, and that can turn into worst part we call abhijja. That means like a strong clinging, or like an unshakable attachment. So it's like a level of same liking turning into a very extreme attachment. And same thing with the negative, like the opposite of liking, right? You don't like it, and that can turn into anger, right? Dosa. It can turn into hatred, which is like a vaira, and it can turn into vyapada. That means you wish somebody to be dead. So disliking to anger to hatred to wish for someone's death. So those are, and the top two, avidya and vyapada, those thoughts themselves can produce negative karma. So just liking and disliking is not a karma yet. You have to act on it. But the strong attachment or clinging and strong hatred towards somebody, that the thought itself can produce karmic result.
So the chanda, is that translated to what English word?
Chanda is like a wish, almost like a wish.
Okay.
Yes. Good discussion, Bante.
All right. Thank you for everybody. Thank you, Sai. We'll chant the page 4 and page 10. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Deluding passions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dhamma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the face of fearless be. May the grieving shadow grief, and the sick find health relief. When Thank you again for everybody. I think we have tea and cookies. And next Sunday, I think Subodha is going to give a Dhamma talk. Please come and join next Sunday also. I believe next Sunday is 15th. Yes, 15th of this month. So, oh, some cupcake. We have a lot of. Sai bring some cupcake today. All right, that's good. So we have tea and cookies and cake. And thanks again for everybody. By the power of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, you will be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.